Oh, man. Yes. Oh, man. Whew. It's Friday. I'm here talking football. Like I tell girls I date, I'm here for a good time, but not for a long time. So it's going to be a short show. I'm really excited about this. My top 10 tight ends of all time, I've kind of hit a snag. I got three players I want to put at spot number 10. 1 through 9 is locked in. I have to figure out number 10. Ideally, I'll do that Monday, start on the video, have it released. I'm going to say end of this month, maybe. It might be. I might post it after the 4th of July. I haven't figured that part out yet because I'm still working on it. Another announcement that I have, I'm very excited. I have a confirmation from the talent of the Back Talk brothers joining me next week. Keys has I think 46 kids, and because of that, he can't confirm, but he's going to try to be able to come in. I've also reached out to a few other members of the Chiefs Kingdom, people I've worked with, and trying to get some people together, talk a little Chiefs football, because I think there's some interesting topics. But I really want to get Gooch and Keys on board because last year around June, they were talking about Isaiah Pacheco, and I kind of poo-pooed it. I was like, no, don't worry about it. It's really CEH, and that's kind of what they're going to roll with. But they were adamant that Pacheco may be taking that job, and he did. So I have to give them a lot of credit. My boy Funk's showing up, man. Appreciate it, brother. He says, "What's good, buddy? Hanging with the fam." So I'll probably have to listen back later. Have a good show, brother. Hey, man, I'm glad you stopped in for a little bit, man. You enjoy your time with the family. You can listen to it on the rebroadcast. And next week, hopefully, I'm going to have some guests on. Like I say, Gooch did confirm that he was going to come on because I want to hear some of their insights from training camp. There are some good training camp stories. I did want to focus a little bit on the Chiefs, and the last thing I want to do is that because I'm a Chiefs fan, I don't want to have a Chiefs-centered show. I want to talk all 32 teams. I want to hear from all 32 fan bases. Whoever you're a fan of, I want to hear from you. What's going on with your team? What's some training camp stories that I should be looking at? But I've been paying attention to the Chiefs because Chris Jones has been a no-show. If you're not familiar, Chris Jones, one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League, went to social media. I think it was actually during the season last year, and he said that he wanted a raise, but he worded it very carefully that most Chiefs fans kind of misunderstood. He said, I want to be the second highest paid defensive tackle. So he didn't ask for Aaron Donald money, but he did ask for more money than he's making because this is the last year of his contract, but he is 30. And if you're not familiar, this offseason, the Giants reset the defensive tackle market with Dexter Lawrence. Now, normally when you say reset the market, you're normally talking about the highest paid player. But that wasn't the case with Dexter Lawrence. It was second highest paid defensive tackle. He signed, I believe it was $4 $94 million deal. And because of that, Chris Jones is looking to beat it. Quinn Williams of the Jets is looking to beat that as well. And both teams are in tight salary cap situations. So one thing about the Chiefs is because Chris Jones' best days are probably behind him. What do you do? With Quinn Williams, his best days could be forward. So that's also a tough situation. I got Tommy on board here. DC for life, Cowboys Nation, man. You know what? We need Cowboys fans here. We need Cowboys fans here. I would love to hear, what are some stories behind the Cowboys. I think talent-wise, they're the second best team in the NFC. I think Philly has more talent top to bottom. I really do. I think Dallas is second, but in the NFC, I think you got Philly, and then you have a bunch of other teams. Dallas could be one. I'm really high on the Saints. I think the Saints are most likely to win that division, but there are some question marks about the Saints. In the NFC West, I have no idea who the quarterback is going to be for San Francisco, so that's going to be a big question. I have no idea if Seattle's going to get better. On paper, they look like they're better. They got Bobby Wagner back, but at 34, is he going to have the same type of impact? He played really, really well for the Rams last year. Really, really well. So, Geno Smith also played great, but you also got Jackson Smith and Jigba on board with one of the best receiving duos in the NFL. A lot of people thought Witherspoon was the number one, not only defensive back or corner, but the number one best defensive player. You got him on the board. On paper, Seattle looks better, but I'm not sold on Geno Smith. Defensively, they were bad. It's always hard for me to get behind the team. The one thing about Dallas is that they remind me a lot of the Rams last year, that if they have just a few injuries, you're looking at a team that could be in really bad shape. So, but man, I do need more Cowboys fans here. So that's awesome that you're here, man. Thanks, brother. I'm actually really, really curious about Mozzie Smith. And the reason why is that one thing that Dan Quinn's done that's been extremely, extremely impressive is that when he was with Seattle and with Atlanta, he ran the same type of defense. He ran that cover three. It reminds me a lot of the Tampa 2. It was the same exact defense. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a very bland, very boring defense, not a lot of change. He comes to Dallas, he really switched things up. And one thing I was a little questionable about is that Mozzie Smith, to me, looked like your 3-4 defensive lineman. I mean, he looked like he could play a 0 technique. I thought he could be a 5 technique, but he's a guy that really seemed to fit more of a 3-4 type of defense, even though 4-3-3-4 is coming really outdated. You know, we're really looking at more base nickel packages where you're looking at like a 3-3-5 and a 4-2-5, but I'm going to use 4-3-3-4 because that's kind of the most thing that I'm looking at. But you have a guy that seemed like a square peg in a round hole. So I'm really excited because is this a guy, because athleticism is there. The production really wasn't there, but the way they did Michigan was that they kind of rotated a lot of players in there. He wasn't really asked to be overly productive. He's really asked to be a space eater, but he's got above average athleticism. With the other defensive lineman at Dallas has a second round pick at Ole Miss last year. I want to say it's Sam Steed, something like that. He was a guy I really liked, but I liked him more as an outside linebacker and a 3-4 type of defense. So I'm kind of curious if that would work. Deuce Vaughn's a guy I'm very, very familiar with. If you don't know his story, his father is a scout for the Dallas Cowboys, played phenomenal. I mean, I'm in Kansas City, Tommy, in case you're not that familiar with me. I got to watch a lot of K-State last year, and I got to watch a lot of Deuce Vaughn, and this is a really, really good player. And I'm kind of interested to see how he does because this is a guy that can be a good returner, receiver. He's going to make the Cowboys team. How much of an impact is he going to have? And how are the Cowboys going to use him? I'm really excited to see this because if they use him at all and he can have an impact, because he's a guy I'm kind of wanting, no special teams play, to get about 75 touches this year. I'm just 5 a game. That's all I'm asking, and he could have an impact. So that's really good to hear. I'm man. Thanks for joining, man. I appreciate it. Oh my God, it's my girl from Hey Girl TV. By the way, for you men that are watching, check out my girl Hey Girl TV. I don't have a link to her channel, but just look on YouTube, Hey Girl TV. You want to know about fashion? You want to know about fragrance? You want to know what's hot on your girl? And because I asked, she did some special shows for the men So she's giving some love out here. Jalen Tolbert in working with Brandon Cooks. I think Tolbert will play good. Well, the thing with Tolbert is he's a guy who's got a real good size speed. He came out of South Alabama last year, a player I really like, but he's a project. So what the Cowboys did is that they drafted a project just in case they it's kind of a safeguard in case things get, rough with CeeDee Lamb. It's also in case Michael Gallup doesn't come back. You got a talented guy like Jalen Tolbert. And then you got Brandon Cooks, who when healthy is a legitimate number one on your own. So you got like 4 talented receivers. You tell me, is Gallup going to be ready to go at 100% day one? Because you could have a really, really good, exciting receiving core. And the one thing about Mike McCarthy, at least I'm going by what he did in Green Bay, and I'm assuming since you got rid of first name freeze of the day at 11 minutes, Ezekiel Elliott, I think you're going to be more of a pass first team. And since you got 4 really good receivers, I kind of see that happening. That was something that they did in Green Bay, is that, before teams were using 3-4 wide receiver sets all the time, Green Bay really kind of started it off with Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy and just throwing the ball all over the field. And the run was kind of an afterthought. By the way, the Kansas City Chiefs won the Super Bowl, very similar philosophy. So that works out. And I also want to see the development of another name freeze of your left tackle, the kid you drafted out of Tulsa last year. He was a guy I thought that was really raw, probably better for the inside. What they did is they kicked him out to the outside, played really, really, really well. And so when Tyron Smith came back from injury, he moved over to the right side, no problem. And that seems to work. And if that's your tackle combination, I can't believe I can't think of the guy's name. It's Tyron Smith on the right, the kid out Tulsa on the left. I'm drawing a complete blank on his name. If that works out, your interior offensive line is really good. So you're set on offense, and you got some wide receivers. I think you're going to be more of more of a passing offense. I'm excited for my team this year, especially since it's really, really funny that you bring that up, because he went to the Chargers, and a lot of people are telling me that Kellen Moore is going to be a major upgrade for the Chargers offense, and that the Chargers offense is really going to just rise to a new level with Kellen Moore. But since you're saying that, in case you're not familiar with the AFC West, the Chargers every year are predicted to win the AFC West. The Chargers are a Super Bowl team. The Chargers got all this talent. And what happens is they always underperform, but a lot of people think that since they got Kellen Moore. So you're saying that, that has me wondering, hey, are Chargers fans in for another 9-8 season, which I think they are. And I think that Staley, I can't think of his first name, head coach of the Chargers, probably going to be gone. So by the way, Hey Girl's just awesome. I love this girl here. She's married, guys. She's married, so she's not available. But yeah, she's awesome. I love this girl. Tommy says, I'm kind of concerned about a running back position now that Zeke is gone. I like TP and Deuce Vaughn and Malik Davis, because we need a physical running back to help them. Yeah, I one of the things about the NFL is that if you can get 90% or 80% from a player who's a fraction of the cost, you go that route. And they were giving a lot of money to Ezekiel Elliott, and it was a cap casualty, and it kind of unfortunate. But I understand completely. But under the Mike McCarthy offense, you're probably trying to throw the ball about 70% of the time, which is pretty crazy. That's even more than what Kansas City does, contrary to popular belief. A lot of people think that number 75, it's probably closer to 65. But Dallas wants to be a heavy passing offense, and they're going to just use the running back as kind of an afterthought. I'd like to see them get now. Keep in mind, Tony Pollard is really, really good. I don't want him to have 300 to 350 touches. I don't want that at all. This is a guy I think that does best when he plays Robin to somebody else's Batman. I would want, and by the way, the guy that I think would have been perfect, and he was available cheap. He's in He's in Chicago as Dante Foreman, former University of Texas running back, and that's a guy who always produces. He's a big physical guy, and he's a guy that I was kind of thinking would go back. When I say go back to Dallas, I mean just the state of Texas, he's in Chicago, and I think he's going to do a pretty good job. But somebody like that, I think, would have been perfect for the Dallas Cowboys because he would have been affordable. He would have been bigger, more physical running back. You have somebody like Tony Pollard, so. Yeah, there's questions about the Dallas Cowboys, but the one thing you have to say though is that is there a team in the NFC more talented than Philly or Dallas? And you know, or let's ignore Philly. Okay, let's just focus on Dallas. How many teams in the NFC are more talented than Dallas? I think the answer is Philly, and that's it. Can they get everything else together? I don't know. But they got the talent. Speaking of Eagles, my boy Slasher, yo, what's happening, man? I'm glad to be here, man. I'm super excited. I got my top 10 tight ends list is coming out hopefully soon. I'm stuck on number 10. 1 through 9's locked. Number 10's tough. Number 10's tough. So, but really, really, really excited about what's going on. I'm just concerned about running back room. Yeah, you should be. Don't be surprised if the Cowboys make a move either in midseason or in the preseason. We think D-Hop is landing in New England. He visited with both Tennessee and New England. He's not going to make a move anytime soon. I think if he signs with New England, I've been saying this for a while. People are really sleeping on New England, and this is a team that has a really, really good defense with a lot of young talent. Okay. And then what they do in the draft, they drafted 2 of the best athletes at defensive line in Keon White and Christian Gonzalez at corner that you can get in the draft. Two of the best, just pure athletes. Right. And I think they're 4th in points allowed. And then this offseason, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, you got Mike Majecki, something like that. Who's a great athlete, just things didn't really work out in Miami. I think he's going to help quite a bit. The offense was just so bad, so they got some free agents. They brought in Bill O'Brien. So I've been telling people, like, man, don't sleep on New England. People are really writing off New England with Aaron Rodgers signing with the Jets. And I'm like, man, I wouldn't be surprised New England wins that division. I really wouldn't. Right now, I'm going to stick with the champs, and that's Buffalo. But, I mean, they got 3 teams in that AFC East that could give Buffalo a real challenge. So, do I think D-Hop lands in New England? I think if I'm DeAndre Hopkins, I want to go to New England. I'm going to be the number 1 guy. I think Mac Jones is pretty good. You reunited with Bill O'Brien. They had a really, really good relationship together. So I kind of like that move. Tennessee makes a lot of sense. Tennessee makes a lot of sense as well. So it'll be interesting. I keep hearing things on social media about DeAndre Hopkins coming to Kansas City. It's not going to happen. I can almost promise you about that. I think if he's smart, he goes to New England. Tennessee may be able to offer a little more money. So I lost all respect for Kellen Moore when I saw that ridiculous last play against the Niners. Yeah, I hated that play. I mean, it was just so it was terrible. And a lot of people think like this is going to be a major improvement for the Chargers. And maybe it's because Joe Lombardi was, he's not really excelled as an offensive coordinator. He's not a big name, but I really don't see Kellen Moore being the savior. I kind of laughed at Denver by signing Sean Payton because I don't think Sean Payton and Russell Wilson work well together. But ever since they signed him, they've done every other thing right. I mean, they brought in a great defensive coordinator. I can't believe I forgot his name already. Tommy, I'm really bad with names. I could give you like 4 or 5 facts. I'm just bad with names. This is why you always call your girlfriend baby. So you get some life advice from me as well. But yeah, I hated that play. It was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. I don't think things are going to work out with the Chargers, even though they got a lot of talent. Dallas is an interesting team. Oh, man, I got my boy One Pride 40. What you gonna do, brother, when One Pride Mania runs wild on you? Me and One Pride. By the way, all my social media links are below. One Pride 40 has been sending me some great stuff on Instagram. It doesn't have to be football, but I mean that's what I'm mostly do on all my social media. All my social media is basically football related, but you can send me some other stuff. One Pride's been sending me some great stuff on Instagram, some really great stuff. So yeah, I don't blame you, man. That was a terrible call. Terrible play. I'll be honest. It was a tough draw, man, because I mean San Francisco is a pretty good team, and when I looked at those NFC playoffs, like which team do you want to play the least, and it was San Francisco. So I mean it's such a tough draw, and but then again, if you want to get to a Super Bowl, you're gonna have to beat some tough teams, and that NFC East is going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. But I don't blame you. I don't blame you. And they're going to throw the ball a lot more, so it'll be exciting to see what happens in Dallas. Nah, it's going to the Bills. I mean, that's my pick right now. I like what they've done in the draft. Leonard Floyd, I think, is a great signing, reunites with Von Miller. If they're capable of putting up 30 points, the defense is going to be pretty solid. I wonder, because Leslie Frazier is not going to be back, how much of that is going to affect defense, because Brian Daboll taking over Dable. I'm sorry, the new head coach in the Giants. He was the Bills' offensive coordinator. That did have a hole. How do I know? 10 points against Bengals in the playoffs at home. I know Josh Allen was not 100%, but still. Tommy, if you're curious about this, man, we got a lot of Lions love here, and they are very, 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 very excited in Detroit about their Lions, and they should be. So you are getting some friendly trash talk here. I like the Sean Payton hire. Well, here's the thing. I laughed about it at first because I don't think Sean Payton and Russell Wilson mixed at all. But after they did that, they got the defensive coordinator. Can't believe I forgot his name. Vance Joseph, the defensive coordinator, who was the former Broncos head coach. They brought him on board. Everything they did in free agency was really good. I really liked their draft because they didn't have first-round pick. They got a couple of really good players in the third round, impact players on the defensive side of the ball. There's talent there in Denver, and I like what they've done so far. Do I think Sean Payton and Russell Wilson are going to mix? I don't think so. I really don't. But if it does fit, then they're a team to watch out for. So. Lions beating Dallas would be nice. One Pride 40, what he says, it's majority men's self-improvement stuff. And so what me and One Pride have talked about this down the line, probably not for a long time. And I say long time, probably a couple of years. I want to do another YouTube channel and talk about men's self-development. That's something I'm really big on. It's something that One Pride's really big on. And it's something that, because this channel's mostly men, even though I got my girl, Hey Girl TV on here. And it's that I think a lot of men, especially in today's age and today's time, really just don't understand their worth. They don't understand their value. They don't understand their importance. I kind of want to tread lightly about this, but I've seen a lot of guys just marry horrible women thinking that that's all they can do. And for those of you that are married, great, more power to you. But if you're a single guy, your value is a lot higher than you may think. And too many men just get beat down. I've known a lot of men that get married and they are just beaten down. And I want to like, hey, listen, man, you're better than you think you are. So eventually I want to get a YouTube channel. It kind of builds men up. And I think it's something that's been kind of overlooked in society. And that's something I really, really and think that's very, very important. When I'm not talking football, looking at football on YouTube, listening to football podcasts, I'm doing a lot in self-development. And eventually I want to get a YouTube channel. And One Pride 40's messaged me, and hopefully I'm not speaking for you, but he said he'd be interested in being a part of it. And I'm really excited about that for the future. But it right now it's just all football, but in the future there's going to be a lot of men's self-improvement information, fitness, taking care of your body, how you agree with or how you can get what you want out of your relationships with women and men. Not in it. Nothing wrong with it, but not in a gay way. If you are that way, that's cool. I mean, more power to you. I mean, whatever you want, great. But you get what I'm saying. Once Austin Eckler heard Kellen Moore became the OC for the Chargers, he so here's the whole story about that. Austin Eckler signed a extremely friendly deal. He signed I think it was 4-year, $24 million contract. And I'm not sure how much you know Austin Eckler. This is one of the best running backs in football. 2 years ago, he had, I think it was 20 touchdowns. When he was a slot receiver only, he had over 100 receptions in a season. Last year, they basically just used him between the tackles. Now, keep in mind, Austin Eckler has this, I follow him on Instagram. He had this workout where he does a ton of one-arm pull-ups. The dude's built like a brick, but he's about 5'8", 210. He's not a guy that you want running between the tackles. He's a guy that you get him in open space. He's a lot of fun. They really haven't used him correctly in the last couple of years. His best position is really at slot receiver. And one thing I've noticed about Kellen Moore is that both him and another name freeze. My ex-girlfriend used to call him the redhead. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Your former head coach. I'm really embarrassed about this, but anyway, both those guys seem to want to run the ball a little more, and McCarthy wants to be a pass happy guy. So I think that that's kind of what he wants to do with the Chargers, and Eckler really should be a slot receiver. Chargers gave him like an extra bonus, and he's going to stay there. Or I'm sorry, Chargers gave him a bonus. He's going to stay there. It wouldn't surprise me if sometime during the season he gets traded and goes somewhere. He's a really, really good player. As soon as he's away from the Chargers, I will breathe a big sigh of relief. He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. Lions have a good chance of ruling their division, making a deep run in the playoffs. I do think that. I still, as of right now, I know I'm kind of talking out both sides of my mouth, because Minnesota in one side looks like they're having a fire sale, but Minnesota at the same time is probably my favorite to win the NFC North. One of the things I always look at when I break down a team for next year is how did they finish the previous season? Well, the Lions finished 8-2. They were maybe the best team in the NFC for the last 2.5 months of the year, but Minnesota won that division pretty early. I mean, they were a 13-win team. Lions were a 9-win team, and it really surprises me that sportsbooks have the Lions as such a massive favorite, because when I look at Minnesota and I look at Detroit, I see two teams with really good offenses. Minnesota, they brought in Brian Flores. Now, they did lose some players, but they added a little bit. And then I see with the Lions is that they're sticking with their coaching staff. They're just trying to add youth and free agents. CJGJ, I finally got that right, is a nice addition. How are they going to use them? That's a question mark. I'll be honest, I'm not sold on Aaron Glenn as the defensive coordinator. If he pans out, because here's the thing with that offense, if that offense gets better and you have the middle of the pack defense, everything you're saying in this statement's correct. I agree. A lot of men don't think they can get a top tier woman. I'm not saying go out and shoot your shot with Carrie Underwood. But you would be surprised how many guys I see I'm gonna tread carefully here. You would be surprised at how many guys I see with married to some girl who's 50 pounds overweight and yells at them all the time. You would be surprised how often I see it. And I don't, and you've maybe heard the expression happy wife, happy life, or man cave. And those things that meant, you should have, you're the king of your castle. And that's kind of controversial. Probably not correct with everybody, but you should be the leader. Men should be leaders. And that's something that's kind of, I'm kind of ranting in a bad thing there, but I want men to feel good about themselves. No, don't get me wrong. If your wife's 50 pounds overweight and you're happy with her and she treats you great, more power to you. But I've seen a lot of guys that they get married to somebody who's not attractive, who's not agreeable, who tears them down, and they feel down. And that's how they act. And I want to try to like, hey, listen, there's some good things about you. And that's something I want to build for the future. Ruling the division as possible, deep playoff run will be tough. Well, I think the only team in the NFC I think that I would say is ready for a deep playoff runs your Eagles. I mean, to be honest with you, I don't think there's a set in stone second team, but I do think it's Eagles, and I think there's everybody else. I don't think that there's anything besides the Eagles in the NFC. So I think any team, I can make a case for the Saints. I can make a case for the Cowboys. I can make a case. I would say probably the Lions, even though I think the Vikings, may have the better shot, but I can make a case for the Lions too. But I think the Eagles are the only team that could say, hey, look, we're ready to make a deep run into the playoffs. And that's it. That's it in the NFC. In the AFC, it's a different story. But not really slasher. The NFC is really weak. I love it. What irritates me about the red pill, and that's one thing, is that the red pill community is become more about trashing women than building up men. And that's one thing I don't like. And that's one thing that I'd like to come in and do, is that I don't want to tear down women and talk about bad marriage, or I'm sorry, talk badly about marriage. But I do support men. If you're in a bad marriage, listen, get out. And I be with a wife who treats you the way that you should be treated. That's the whole point. And I can talk about this because I know several friends that are in bad marriages, and I feel badly for them, and I watch the way that they are in a lot of different ways. But I'm pro marriage, but I want you to marry the right person for the right reason. I met this one girl one time. She was a single mom, and she's like, I don't really love this guy, but has a good job, and he, she's really good. I mean, solid 7, adjustable 8, maybe, really good looking. She's like, oh, he's got a good job, and he's nuts about me. He proposed. I don't love the guy, but I'll probably say yeah. And I was like, Jesus. Lions offense has a ton more talent in Minnesota. The Vikings have Justin Jefferson and Hawk, and that's it. Well, I mean, okay, you got Jalen Reagor, talented guy, but didn't pan out in Philly. Jordan Addison's somebody you don't know about. I mean, you really, really don't. But I know Daniel Jeremiah had him as his 9th overall prospect. And I mean, I'm not going. I'll never say anything bad about Daniel Jeremiah. He was not my number one wide receiver, but you have a talented prospect. You got Jalen Reagor. Justin Jefferson's really good, man. I mean, Justin Jefferson's really good, and they use Hawkinson a lot more than Detroit did. Now, keep in mind, Hawkinson was a very productive player in Minnesota, despite arriving mid-season. So, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot. Would I say that they have more talent than Minnesota? I don't know, man. But having a ton more, no. No. You have a better offensive line. I will say that your offensive line's better, but that's pretty much it. Everything else, well, we haven't seen Jamar Gibbs take a snap yet. We haven't seen Jordan Jefferson take a snap yet. Can Ray Gore reach that potential? It made him a number one wide receiver. The receiver that you guys got last year, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on him. God, I really liked. I gotta look it up here. I'm feeling embarrassed about this. Josh Reynolds, that's the guy I was thinking of. And then Jameson Williams, is he going to live up to that potential? He's got to. Seahawks are going to be good. Giants just loaded up and have coach of the year. Saints loaded back up on defense, got Derek Carr for Olave and Thomas. With Seattle, I'm not sold on Geno Smith being the answer. I do like Jackson Smith and Njigba with those pair of receivers. I think that's a nice combo. My boy One Pride is really high on Kenneth Walker. He's the main guy now. He's the number one guy. Can he handle 350? Can he handle 350? We don't know. So when I say 350, I should elaborate on that. Can he handle 350 touches? Because I think he's a guy that if you have him touching the ball, 15 times a game, I think that's perfect. So, but I do like Kenneth Walker quite a bit. With the Giants, without Barkley, they're not a threat. And then Barkley has to stay healthy. So that's a big story this preseason is Barkley's holding out. Can they get that ironed out? They need Barkley. The defense also has to take the next step up. And they got enough young talent. I think they can. I like the Saints quite a bit. Derek Carr is very mediocre. Thomas is not the same player. Thomas is a huge question mark, but I think Carr is an upgrade over Andy Dalton. I do think that. Remember, Derek Carr and another name freeze. Dennis Allen, the head coach of the Saints. Dennis Allen was head coach of Raiders when Derek Carr arrived, so these two know each other. I think there's going to be some familiarity. Can Derek Carr be a top 10 quarterback in the league? Yeah. Is he elite? No. I don't. I think he's better than mediocre, but yeah. Am I taking Madison? No. I like Montgomery quite a bit, and I like your offensive line better. But when I look at receivers and tight end, and then I'm taking Minnesota. I probably would take Cousins over Goff, but I'll be honest, that's more of a coin flip. You sent me, by the way, so for those of you that aren't familiar, One Pride sent me a YouTube video. A guy had 32 ranked quarterbacks, and One Pride was not happy when Cousins was ranked 8th, and I'm like, it's a little high, but I don't hate it. There were some other things I didn't like. Overall, solid list. He had Mahomes number 1, so that's good. No, I was thinking Reynolds, not Williams. Back Talk Brothers just got in here. How many lines have Dan done? I've done 0. I don't do drugs. But goddamn, it is good to see you, Back Talk Brothers. Follow my boys, the Back Talk Brothers. I'm going to try having as many of them as I can next Friday. Gooch the Talent did confirm. Kenneth Walker was so much fun to watch at Michigan State. So much fun to watch. Derek Carr isn't mediocre, just surrounded by mediocre teams. It's going to be really interesting because the Saints, I think, are my easy favorite to win the NFC South. What can they do? They're banking a lot on a couple of older veteran players. Demario Williams, I think, is going to be 35. And then Cam Hayward's 34. So they're banking a lot on those two guys. The Honey Badger, one of my all-time favorite players, is going to be 31. So, yeah. Swatch the. Well, I'm Keys. I'm just hopeful if things work out with you. I'm hopeful that you can come on to Gooch to confirm. I haven't heard back from I haven't heard from Big Chief Sean in a while, so we might have to do like a wellness check on Big Chief Sean. He's been posting a little bit on social media, but I really want to. I'd like to get Big Chief Sean on board. I haven't heard from him in a while. But I'm dying to hear what you guys have to say about training camp, because you guys, for those of you who don't know, Keys and Gooch the talent were really on board early with Pacheco taking over as starting running back, and I was like, no, it's just a training camp story. Just don't worry about it. So yeah. What did the Vikings have last year? One pride Thielen has fizzled out. Sam Laporta is going to be good. I think he is. Is he going to be good right away? You can't bank on rookies. You can't just put a rookie in there and say, oh, he's going to be a Pro Bowler. You can't do that. You trust. I like Dennis Allen a little more than most people. I thought he had a real bad deal with the Raiders. I thought he deserved some consideration for a head coaching position. He did a fantastic job with their defense. Their defense was 32nd for the longest time, and he turned it into a top 5 unit. I do trust Dennis Allen as a defensive coordinator, and I like their defense. So their offense, okay, we talked a lot about the Lions and the Vikings and a team like Kansas City where they only need their defense to be middle of the pack. Well, the Saints are a team, it's just the opposite. Their defense is really good, but they're banking on a bunch of players that are over 30, and that's never really a good thing. The defense is really good. Their offense has to get to middle of the pack, and they got weapons. Now, is it all going to come together this year? I don't know, but the Saints are my favorite to win that division. Do I trust Dennis Allen? Kind of, sort of. It's not a rock solid answer. It's not a rock solid answer, and I understand that. But do I trust Dennis Allen? Yeah. Honestly, I don't think the focus on the Vikings should be the offense. Brian Flores becoming their DC is such a dark horse hire for me. I thought it was a great hire. The only issue I really have about just giving my full support on the Vikings is that they lost Peterson. Preston Smith went somewhere. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. So they lost two key starters. And Patrick Peterson wasn't going to be there for the long term, but he played really well last year. So, I mean, you are losing a key starter at corner, and then, you're losing Zadarius Smith. That's the thing I was trying to think of. So here's the deal. The Vikings had Zadarius Smith had double-digit sacks. I think Daniel Hunter had double-digit sacks, but they only had 32 as a team. So losing one of their top pass rushers is going to be key. Flores' got his work cut out for him, but I think it's a massive improvement. So when they first hired Flores, I'm like, man, people should watch out. But then they started losing players, and Dalvin Cook gone. It's going to be interesting. Keep in mind, they have a much tougher schedule this year. So it's going to be interesting, but the Vikings would probably be my favorite to win the NFC North. And I say probably because I love the way the Lions finished the season, but am I banking on the Lions like, hey, this is a 12-win team? No, I'm not. So Allen brought in Gruden to work with Carr after signing. That was genius, by the way. That was really genius. If JMO pops off, then you have Amon-Ra, and I believe Laporta may become. Oh, absolutely. Okay, let me be very clear. Laporta can be a top 5 tight end, and when we say top 5 tight end, he's never going to be a guy who's knocking the defensive end off his ass. That's not going to be his type of game. He's going to be more of a Travis Kelce type tight end where he's going to be a big receiver. So there's a chance he could be a top 5 tight end this year just because he's going to catch a lot of passes. And the reason why he's going to catch a lot of passes is because if you're playing against Detroit, you're watching over Amon-Ra St. Brown. Am I worried about this second-round tight end rookie? I'm probably worried more about Amon-Ra. And so Laporta is probably going to catch a lot of passes. But we don't know. You don't want to put a rookie in and say, hey, this is a top 5 player in this position group. You can't do that because you don't know. But does he have the potential? Yeah, he really does. And if JMO pops off, you got some weapons because Amon-Ra is. I remember I kept on saying he's a number 2. He's a number 2. He proved me wrong. He's a number 1. He's really good. I don't know how well he is actually running the ball, or he's gotten very many opportunities, but I really like Kenny. No, Wahoo. Yeah, he's an excellent returner. He's an excellent returner. Oh, man, I got Denver Gator in the house. Intergalactic, planetary, intergalactic, another mention. Oh, man, little Beastie Boys. Oh, man. You know, it's funny that you bring that up because I was watching reruns of Who's the Boss, and they're talking about the Beastie Boys. So, underrated show. Who's the Boss? Underrated show. This is what I'm wanting to hear. Gibbs and Laporta have been impressing camp. I've heard about Gibbs. They're using him as a slot receiver. Genius move. And I heard he's doing good. I knew I did. You're the first person to tell me about Laporta, and that's good. That's kind of the whole point of this channel. So, and you know, it's kind of funny because, you know, week 1, I kind of wonder if after the game, if Laporta, you know, talks to Kelsey. I think if he does, it's smart. Sean has been making rounds on other people's channels too. He joined us a couple of weeks ago for Midnight Live. Really? Okay. You know what? I missed it. I should have mentioned. Anyway. I'll DM you. But yeah. I sent out that group message. I have not heard from him, and I put some comments he didn't respond to, so I haven't heard from him. But I really like to have him come on. He brings something. He brings a great energy. I'm a big fan of him. Great guy. Great guy. I love Big Chief Sean. So hopefully he will be able to join us Friday. Hopefully you can as well, Keys. I do got the Gooch locked in. At least he says so now, but I know how to schedule this. So I've been high on Laporta as well. I've really liked Laporta. Things so Laporta is how much of Iowa's offensive woes were offensive coordinator Brian LaFrance and how much were the QB. I've heard some deflect from Brents and blamed the QBs for a lot of it. Yeah, if you watched Iowa last year, their offense was god awful. The only thing they had was Laporta. Watching Iowa's offense last year was so painful. It was so painful, but their defense was so good. Their defense was just as good as Georgia. It really was. It's just their offense was just painful to watch. I think Kincaid is going to be really special. I do too. I wonder how they're going to use him in Buffalo. But I love Kincaid, and I think the Bills really hit a home run there by getting a guy like Kincaid. And I think it's also leverage in case Diggs runs and it causes too many problems. You can get rid of Diggs because I think Kincaid has the potential to be your number 1 wide receiver, even though he's going to be called a tight end. So, yeah. If it was the quarterbacks, I think Laporta should be fairly good to go. But if it was the offense in which he looked archaic, it might really slow down his ability to contribute earlier. That's kind of why I said you can't really put him as a top 5 tight end already, because you have to realize a lot of these. One thing that's college football is a completely different game than NFL. It's not like basketball. Where it's just people are bigger, stronger, faster. It's a different game. It's a completely different game. And if you watch Iowa's offense, there's almost nothing about an Iowa offense that's going to translate to an NFL game. And if you watch Detroit last year, part of the reason they got rid of Hawkinson is because they really didn't utilize the tight end position. And it may have been because they didn't have a lot of faith in Hawkinson. But when I watched them play for the Vikings, I'm like, well, why didn't the Lions throw Hawkinson all these passes? So it's kind of questionable. So there are some question marks there in Detroit for their offense, even though last year I think they're 4th in points overall. I think there's some legitimate questions. I really do. But here's the thing. The offensive line's really good. Amon-Ra St. Brown is really good. Goff can be really good. At times he's been really, really, really good. Jameson Williams, I mean, there's a reason why he was the 11th overall pick despite the torn ACL. And Laporta is a guy that I did like quite a bit. So, yeah. Yeah, I think with Josh Allen throwing in the ball, I seriously, I'm kind of thinking what they're doing is you take a page out of the Chiefs playbook. So when the Chiefs had Tyreek Hill to combat that, what teams did is they put two safeties in the parking lot, played a lot of deep cover, took away Tyreek Hill, and so what Mahomes do, he just start throwing to the tight end. So I think that's what teams are going to try to do to Buffalo is just say, hey, look, we're going to take away the deep ball, we're going to take away the wide receiver. Well, what do? Well, you just throw you just throw the ball to Kincaid a lot, who's capable of winning battles, one on one, even when he's not wide open. And Allen does have some really good arm strength and some arm talent. So it's going to be fun. Flores will scheme up some pressure, though. Miami didn't have much in their defensive line when he was there. Exactly. And I think that keep in mind, Daniel Hunter is really good. He's had some issues with injuries. And Daniel Hunter's not. So it's kind of funny because coming out of college, I thought he was more of a 3-4 outside linebacker, but he put on the NFL 20, and he's really better suited to be a pure defensive end, not a guy that you want in a 2-point stance, even though I thought coming out of college that might be his best position. He put on some weight and was a really good defensive lineman. I don't know if they're going to use him right or not, but I think Flores can figure it out because Daniel Hunter's super talented. I mean, he's an amazing pass rusher. And there's some talent there on that Vikings defense. It wasn't utilized right last year. And I think Flores could really do something. The Vikings are a team, because they did get rid of Dalvin Cook. They got rid of Thielen. Patrick Peterson, and they got rid of Zardarius Smith. So I mean, you could see how the Vikings cut some talent from their team, and I get that. But if the offense is still top 5 and the defense is middle of the pack, that's good enough to get you pretty far in the NFC. And he breaks a ton of tackles and runs very good. Yeah, he does. I love his run after the catch ability, and you can see the athleticism. I have no idea what he's going to do in the NFL. Nobody does. And that's kind of the question. So I didn't believe in the Vikings last year. I'm not saying I do this year either, but I think Flores has the potential to make them more legit 12-win team. I do too. I mean, I remember that game against Buffalo. We tuned in. Me and my dad tuned into it. Score was like 27-10 late in the third quarter in Buffalo, and I'm like, "Oh, this game's over." I mean, Bills are going to win this game, and Minnesota just kept fighting, clawing, and scratching. I mean, and they just never quit. And normally when you see that, you sign a good coaching, and because it looked like they were just down. And they just didn't quit. And I was so impressed with that team. They won that game. That was one of the best football games I've ever seen in my life. Me and Dad are like, holy shit, look at the Vikings. So, yeah. A lot of receivers you get, guys, not box you out guys. Yeah. The Lions are going to be a fun team to watch this year. I'm just saying, I'm not I'm not like anti-Detroit here. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I'm just not 100%. So yeah, it's sad we can't watch Michigan transfer Cade McNara. Yeah, and I'm kind of curious how that's going to work out. I mean, here's the thing. I say the same thing every single year. I'm going to watch more college football this year, and I just don't have the time. I watch probably about, I'm going to say 75 to 100 games, and I'm going to try to watch more, but I probably won't. I'll probably get about 100 college games in this year, and I'll hate myself for it because I always want to watch. If time wasn't an issue, I'd probably watch 20 college football games a week, but I just don't have time. So we always have. Oh my God. It was weird seeing a former tight end turned head coach not utilize the tight end. It was also weird seeing Hawk blow up. Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, it was okay. So if you watched Hard Knocks, I don't know if you did or not, but there was where Campbell goes over, and it wasn't with Hawkinson, but he was working with one of the tight ends. I think I know who he is. I'm just drawing a blank on his name. And he was working with them. I'm like, yeah, they're going to utilize tight ends a lot more. And they never did. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? The key to recruit high school tight ends is to move them to offensive tackles and recruit big high school wide receivers and move them to tight ends. It's funny because that's actually true. It's actually true. I'm another name freeze. The tight end for Cleveland signed a big free agent contract. He was a former wide receiver, ACC high jump champion. And they moved him to tight end. He only played like 11 games, but in the first round because of that crazy athleticism. And there's been multiple tight ends that go to college and they redshirt and they put on like 40 pounds and they're like, listen, you can try to make an NFL roster or you can, put on another 20 and become a first round pick. And that's what's happened to a lot of offensive linemen during the NFL. Lane Johnson, matter of fact, that was a story behind him at Oklahoma. He was a tight end, got to Oklahoma, just put on weight, and they're like, listen, you can wait in line and, hope you get a chance to be the second string tight end, or you can be a first round pick at tackle. What do you want? So, and then there's high school quarterbacks who are convinced to play tight end that do pretty well too. So. For those of you who don't know, that's how Travis Kelce became a tight end. But as of right now, the only two proven guys are Monrod and Montgomery. Yeah. Get a 3-star tight end, move him to offensive tackle. Get a 3-star wide receiver, move him to tight end. The talent level position switch is how Iowa creates 5-star recruits. You're right. Except that instead of 3-star, Iowa recruits more 2-star players than 3-star players. And it give a ton of credit to Iowa, because if you look like at the recruiting rankings, Iowa's not at the top of the Big Ten, but they produce at the top of the Big Ten. And it really credits our coaching staff and Kirk LaFrenz, one of the best coaches in all of college football. Doesn't get the credit he deserves. But you're right. Believe it or not, that's how a lot of offensive linemen enter the NFL, is by being tight ends, and they just put on the weight. So, this isn't the exact blueprint. It's probably more fan fiction, but it seems it's happened over the last 20 years. It's happened to a lot of players. Lane Johnson, tackle for the Eagles, he signed that massive off-season contract. He arrived at Oklahoma as a tight end. He put on some weight. And there's a lot of NFL offensive line. Matter of fact, Eric Fisher, he was number 1 pick overall for the Chiefs. He arrived at Central Michigan as a tight end. They redshirted him, and he put on 40 pounds. The guy who he stayed over, he was former first round pick at left tackle. He went to Central Michigan as a tight end. He put on 40 pounds in an offseason, switched over. That story happens a lot. There's a lot of former tight ends that bulk up to become offensive linemen. There's a lot of wide receivers that bulk up to become tight ends. There's a lot of guys that enter college at one position and they end up playing somewhere else. So in high school, usually what you do is you take your most talented player, you play them at quarterback, and then you get to the college ranks and you say, okay, well, we know you played quarterback in high school, but can you play wide receiver? Can you play running back? Can you play corner? There was one player actually moved the linebacker. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but yeah. In my opinion, he wasted a top tier defense. If you're talking about Kirk LaFrenz, yeah, that defense was so good. Yeah, I get it, bad. I have a lot of confidence in my Lions and my Spartans. Didn't you tell me Spartans were going to win about 3 games this year? Yak is the way to go with the way DC. Yeah, it really is. It really is. Honestly, the jump ball receivers. Yeah, it is. It really is. And by the way, this is a trend. This is a trend in the NFL, and it looks like they're switching back to more smaller, faster wide receivers, and it goes in trends. And this has happened throughout the NFL. There was a trend where it was bigger receivers, then it was trend you had smaller, and then for a long time, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Terrell Owens, And now it seems like the smaller receivers are more in vogue. So outside of week 1, I'm excited. Meanwhile, the Chiefs like turned it back. Yeah, the Chiefs did that. I loved NCAA football, Keys. I still have it on my Xbox. Every once in a blue moon, I bust it out. And well, actually, one of the keys is to take your linebackers and turn them to defensive ends. I'm sure you know that one too. But yeah, I did that a lot. Iowa's 2023 rankings 2 4-star. That's, seriously, that's a lot better than I thought, because I don't think they had a top 25 class, but I could be wrong. Funny you mentioned putting the most talented player at quarterback in high school. I proposed on Twitter. I think the one where we discussed was diminishing the blind side about the most talented offensive line being placed at left tackle in high school, so that right tackle gets neglected. And you know what? I'm really glad you brought this up. So me and Keith had a conversation about, he shared an article with me about, is the blind side tackle being negated? Is it no longer the same thing? Because more and more teams are putting emphasis on the right tackle. And so it used to be that you would pay your left tackle twice as much as you pay your right tackle, but Lane Johnson got a 3-year, $75 million deal. The Chiefs are giving Jawan Taylor, who I'm not convinced is definitely playing on the right side, a 4-year, $80 million deal. So is that the same thing? And I said, I don't believe that to be true. I still think left tackle is more important, and Keith countered with that. But I'm an old school guy. So if you're a right-handed quarterback, or you throw anything right-handed, what do? You turn, and then your back is to the left side. So I'm an old school guy. So I think if you're right-handed, because your back is facing towards your left, it would be opposite on the screen, of course. But I think the left tackle has more of a premium than the right tackle, but the NFL's kind of changed. I still think the left tackle is more important than the right tackle, just simply because of this. Now, if you're a lefty, I think Tua's the only lefty in the NFL. I may be wrong about that. But they gave a ton of money to Teron Armstead to play left tackle, because I still think the left tackle is more important than the right tackle, but things are so different nowadays. So, not necessarily there are bigger receivers that can separate Justin Jefferson. I mean, I get that, but it seems like the NFL was all the top receivers were big guys. Like Cooper Kupp's a big guy too. Where it seems like now Justin Jefferson's like a 6'1" guy, but it seems like the NFL is kind of switching towards smaller, more agile, faster wide receivers. It just seems like, and this goes in trends too. There's a trend where you want bigger receivers, and there's a trend you want smaller receivers and bigger and smaller. And this is just going on throughout NFL history, where it's kind of like a vogue thing. And I think the NFL's focusing more on smaller, shiftier receivers. And I think you're going to see more of that than you're going to see the bigger receivers and the jump ball. Don't get me wrong, guys like Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Jamar Chase, especially A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase, those are like running backs. To be honest with you, 40 years ago, A.J. Brown and Jamar Chase are playing running back in the NFL, not receiver. And that's kind of another trend that's changing, is that you're getting guys that should be, well, not should be, but they would be running backs like 40, 50 years ago. Now these guys are playing wide receiver. Guys that are, third down backs are now playing, wide receiver in the NFL. And because it's switching, it's more of a passing league. Because it's more of a passing league, I think you're going to see more yak guys than guys that can catch jump balls. And I think that's a trend you're going to see go in the next couple of years. It may not. Kind of the big trend that's kind of changing is that. And then you're also seeing more tight ends. They're just big wide receivers. You got Kelsey, and then in this draft, Kincaid and Laporta, the first 2 tight ends are drafted. These guys aren't your wide tight ends. These guys aren't the guys that you're going to line up in a 3-point stance. That position's almost becoming obsolete in the NFL. Now, keep in mind there's several tight ends that are still going to line up in a 3-point stance and try to knock the defensive end off this block, but those guys are becoming fewer and fewer. The Chiefs actually, it was this offseason they decided not to re-sign their fullback, and they're going without a fullback this year, which is weird. But it was a fun discussion. I wasn't exactly arguing anything, just a facilitating discussion. I get it. I mean, to me, if you're right-handed, because it's just natural for somebody to turn. I always think that the left tackle is going to be a more important position than the right, but it's kind of changed throughout the years. More zone blocking schemes are being used. The pocket passer has also become almost an obsolete thing. I was trying to think about it. There's only a handful of quarterbacks I would even call a pocket passer. Get you guys like Aaron Donald. I'm with there. Aaron Rodgers, that's still a mobile dude. Matthew Stafford's not really a pocket passer, but like he's a guy's not, winning games by running for 70, 80 yards a game. But yeah. For those in the chat, the article's arguments were that we don't have Lawrence Taylor's and Derek Thomas's now, while the defensive coordinators out there were great at pressuring every gap. The snaps are predominantly under center, but are way more from shotgun. So there's no blindside article to give specific percentage on every year that was written. Only a third of the pressures came from the right defensive end, right outside linebacker. So the left tackle would only help out with a third of the pressure in offensive line faces. And what he's saying that is because teams line up predominantly in shotgun, there's not really a blindside anymore. And that makes a lot of sense. And but I will always put a higher priority on the left tackle than a right tackle. But the NFL's changing. But yeah. I think there's one or two other points, but I don't remember. It wasn't a part of the article, but in that thread, I shared an article by Brandon Thorne, I think, about things Andy Reid does to protect his offensive tackles, for which he did a lot for Orlando Brown Jr. So Keys is not a fan of Orlando Brown Jr., which I think is a good signing for the Bengals. But and I think it's a loss, but there is a reason why we gave Jawan Taylor all that money and we didn't give Orlando Brown. I just hope it doesn't blow up in our face, because I was actually a big fan of Orlando Brown. I didn't like the trade. For those of you who are not familiar, we gave up a number 1, a number 3, and number 4, and we got a second and Orlando Brown in that trade. And I remember thinking Baltimore easily won this trade. I mean, there's no question, because we're not going to keep Orlando Brown unless we give him top tier money. And I don't think we can afford to do that, because he never came to Kansas City and said, oh, I'm going to take a pay cut. But for some reason, Chiefs Kingdom just assumed he was going to take a pay cut. And one of the things I liked most is that the very first preseason game, as soon as they were done playing, Mahomes and Orlando Brown were connected at the hip. And I thought that was genius to have like your big, offensive tackle that you traded for just be in love with Mahomes. And if the Bengals are smart, they build that relationship between those two really, really fast. All that said, in my opinion, for the Kansas City offense, the right tackle is more important, simply because Mahomes like to escape to the right when the play breaks down. So having a right tackle that can keep to the right. And I get that. I understand the logic behind that, but I will always say that when you throw and you turn your back to the left tackle is going to be important. And I think Orlando Brown, this is something we're going to disagree on. I think Orlando Brown was a lot better of an offensive tackle than most people. The one thing I loved about Orlando Brown is that you eliminated the bull rush. You cannot bull rush Orlando Brown. That was not an option. You had to go around, but you couldn't go through. And that was something that you completely eliminated from Mahomes' backside, was that nobody's going to be able to bull rush a left tackle into Mahomes, because you can't bull rush Orlando Brown, and you completely eliminate that. And I love that about him. The Chiefs' offensive line kept Mahomes unsacked. I mean, Mahomes is responsible for a lot of that, but no sacks in the Super Bowl against an Eagles team that had, what was it, 75, 70 during the regular season. That was a big thing. Orlando Brown played really well in the Super Bowl. But I was a fan of Orlando Brown. I like the fact you couldn't bull rush him. Did he struggle against speed rushers? Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So, they post some gold for men's development and improvement, and they don't shit on women. I lost a lot of respect for the Whatever podcast. I'm not familiar with the Whatever podcast. I said all the way back for free agency, Orlando would look better in 2023 playing for a new team. The offensive line coach isn't bad, and they know his weaknesses. The issue that I have with him going to Cincinnati is their best offensive lineman was their left tackle and Jonah Williams, and they for some reason the Bengals were like, oh, just go over to the right side, and he has no interest in going to the right side because left tackles are still paid more than right tackles. So he's requested a trade. He's still on the roster. I have no idea how they're going to fix that. So, God, I don't want to trash the girl. But there's a few things about her that are a little, but all in all, I like the message. When we work on our men's self-development channel, we'll talk about it a little more. That's one thing. Joe Thuney is phenomenal. For those of you that don't know, Joe Thuney is the left guard. We gave him a 5-year, $80 million contract to come over from the Patriots. Massive contract right after the Chiefs lost the Super Bowl with the Bucks. We signed Joe Thuney, and he's been playing lights out. Really underrated, even though he's gotten some award. A few guys did go through Orlando last season, though. One of the things Gooch was disappointed about, because coming into 22, the blocking versus power was his main argument. Then he said to me after a season, like, he got beat by power a few times this season. You can't get beat by both. If he did, I don't remember him getting beaten by power, but I know there was a couple times where he got beat by speed. But I thought, I have to be very careful here because my ego is huge. I don't think it's a question that he's a top 10 left tackle. I don't think that's even the debate. I don't think you and Gooch think he's a top 10 left tackle. I think he's no question a top 10 left tackle. And I thought the Super Bowl he played excellent. A team that runs the ball more is going to get a lot more out of him than a team that passes the ball predominantly like Kansas City does. Cincinnati runs the ball a little more than Kansas City. They're not a run heavy team. They're not a team like, Baltimore or Tennessee. So I'm kind of curious how it's going to happen. But the weird thing is about him going to Cincinnati is you take your best offensive lineman at Cincinnati. Now keep in mind, he got hurt. I think he got hurt the game either before Buffalo or in the Buffalo game. That's why he didn't play against Kansas City. And that was a big part of, Kansas City getting the win. Any Bengals fan who says, I think you shared that with me. The Bengals were, some Bengals fans said, "Oh, Burrow's 4-0 against Mahomes with fair officiating." That's bullshit. That's bullshit. I muted that guy immediately. I didn't respond. I don't argue. It's just stupid. But also, the Bengals, yeah, they're 3-1 against the Chiefs, and that's what makes rivalries really good. And poaching a player from the Chiefs is a great thing. Give credit to the Bengals where it's due. Great job. But their best defensive player is now in Atlanta. And how do you overcome that? Your secondary wasn't solid to begin with. Your best player played safety. He's gone. So when I look at a season, when the season ends, I always grade things on a plus minus. Even with Orlando Brown, I'm still giving them a minus because our best defensive player is Chris Jones. Now, he's not reporting training camp, but I don't think that'll be an issue. Jesse Bates, their best defensive player, is in Cincinnati. Or I'm sorry, Atlanta. So that's why I would give Cincinnati a minus. So, Burrow processes and gets the ball out quick, and it helps that he can throw the ball up to Chase and Higgins for either are technically open. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to play really well in Cincinnati. The problem is that you got Jonah Williams, former first-round pick, I think 11th overall, and he was playing pretty good at left tackle before he got injured. He has no interest in moving to right tackle, and so you addressed one spot, but you didn't address the right tackle spot, which was something in question. How are they going to fill that? Can they talk Williams into playing right tackle? Because if they can, they could have something really good. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's going to be an issue where, hey, look, we got left tackle. Is Orlando Brown an improvement over Jonah Williams? Yeah, it is, but you also spent a little more money, and you got a little bit of an older player. You still have a hole at the right side. Your interior isn't great either. So. But I believe this, if you ever get with a woman that's fat and unattractive and jags, I think he means drags you to death, Ron. So I know he's probably top 8. I wouldn't argue against. I'm surprised you say that. You say that. But I think he's basically hit his ceiling, and I don't like giving the top left tackle money for a guy who isn't top 5. That I get that. I think he's definitely top 10. I'm surprised you said top 8. I always thought it was kind of like a square peg in a round hole because the Chiefs are a pass-heavy team and run blocking is his specialty. I thought for a team like Tennessee, he would have been perfect. He was perfect for Baltimore. But I thought he played pretty damn well for Kansas City. And I had a guy tell me that he just wasn't that good. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't think he's that good of a player, I don't know what to tell you. This is a really good point. And doesn't project to have a ceiling that puts him there during his contract. It's that this ceiling's not there. I think in the Chiefs offense, he's limited, but I still think he's a really good player. It's going to be very interesting how he does in Cincinnati. Orlando's main arguments for being the top paid left tackle was that he was playing a premium offensive line spot and protecting the best quarterback in the NFL, or as I said in the video last year, the carport coverage. That is awesome. This is awesome. Carport isn't worth a luxury garage price because you have a Ferrari, and yes, this is hyperbole. This is gold, man. This is keys on fire. Nags you to death. Yeah. Okay. Not drags, nags you to death. Yeah. And here's the thing. I have a lot of friends right now that have these unattractive wives that disrespect them in front of me. And I'm a good guy. I'm a good guy. And you don't have to, put on an act in front of me. But if you're married to somebody who's disrespectful or rude to you in front of your friends, or in public in general, that's not good. And here's the thing, it's not good for your self-esteem. And I think a lot of men are just beaten down. And that's kind of why I want to do something. I want to do something where I don't want to mention, but I know a couple guys that should be dating 7s and 8s, and they're with 2s and 3s. And and they just they don't want to. They feel like that's what they deserve. And listen, if you're happy with that 3, great. I'm happy for you. I'm more than happy for you. But if you married that 3 because you're scared to talk to the 7, that's something I'd like to change. So Tennessee, Baltimore, Browns. You know what? I didn't even think about the Browns, but yeah. And New England, I think New England's going to be a little more diversified. I think last year they were just kind of stumped. They had a lot of problems on the offensive line. Some of their they had injuries. They had to move Trent Brown around. Trent Brown's better, I think, on the right side, but they moved him to the left side. I think the plan is to have him on the left side. They did something on the right side. I'm drawing a blank. But yeah, Orlando Brown would work in New England as well. And I didn't even think about the Browns on the white. You're right. I'm sure I sounded, yeah, you did. I'm sure I sounded like I hated Orlando because how passionately I argued about giving him Trent Williams money. Yes, he sounded like he hated Orlando Brown last year, but no, you didn't. Oh, okay. So, all right. So here's the deal. Anytime I use, okay, I wouldn't say all men, but that's not fair. When I give a number scale when it comes to women, it's always about looks. Always about looks. And I know a couple guys that I consider pretty high value guys that settled down with 2s and 3s. And the issue is that, look, listen, if you're happy, I'm happy for you. If you got a 2 or 3 and you married a 2 or 3 and you're happy and you're content and your life is good and she treats you good, I'm happy for you. But if you married that 3 because you were scared to walk over and try with a 7, that's where I have a problem. And that's where I want to say, hey, that 7 can't hurt you. She can say no. She can talk down to you. She can insult you. But what does that do? That does nothing. And that's something that I want to change. And that's something I'm going to do down the line in a couple of years. And one pride says, this is a true thing. This is a true thing. So hold on here. I kind of want, I'm letting the trains go off the tracks here. So let me back up. I said New England because Belichick looks like he zagged a power run while NFL defenses got lighter for, yeah. I agree with that because he moved Trent Brown from the right to the left side, and he took his left tackle. I'm drawing a blank on his name. And it was kind of weird because everybody thought he was a guard because he was short, but he had long arms. So Belichick tried him, and he played well at left tackle. He just couldn't stay healthy. So the Patriots moved on. And by the way, what did they do? They got 245-pound running back. Trent Brown has to be under 360 to be really, really, really good. But yeah. And this is what you should do. And by the way, one pride, let's say you talk 7, 8, 9, and 10, and then you marry a 5 and you're happy with that 5. I'm happy for you. But if you married a 5 because you're scared to talk to a 7, that's something I want to change. Dan, I think of you every time I watch it. By the way, if you're not aware of this, and I'm one of these days I'm going to post like some stuff from there, but there is a crazy hot Matrix video. It's kind of funny. I used to date a girl. Oh God. You have to go back in a time machine. Watch My Cousin Vinny. Marissa Tomei in that. I dated a girl who people would tell her she looked like that, smoking hot. Batshit crazy. And I put up with it for a while, but she drank a lot. She smoked a lot. She got some really ugly tattoos. Last time she hit me up, she had like purple hair, but the roots were kind of gray. She put on 40 pounds and it's like, no. And I think of that crazy hot scale and I'm like, God, I put up with a lot of, now keep in mind, this was a very long time ago and I've learned a lot since then, but yeah. And here's the thing, instead of dealing with the crazy, I think you should just eliminate it and be with somebody who makes you feel good about yourself. So, man, that's more in relationship. That's yeah, exactly. This isn't. This is not going to be a relationship channel. It's good for jobs. It's good for friendship. You should hang out with friends who do what they say they're going to do. Friends of mine, I got friends who support my channels. One guy, who I just stopped talking to because he trashed my channel, he trashed me, and I'm like, why am I hanging out with somebody like this? You're gone, and this is for friendship. It's for jobs. How do you work in a job? Do you let a boss or a coworker run all over you, or do you stand up for yourself in a positive way? You don't let coworkers talk down to you. You don't let your friends talk down to you. This is never going to be a dating channel, but I want men to feel good about themselves because, I think that there's too much, there's not enough things out there that want to build men up, but there's a lot to tear men down, and toxic masculinity is a bad thing. And watch any TV show today, and you have a wimpy, nerdy, weak man, and there's so much in society where you're taught today how to be weak and beta, and you're not taught to stand up for yourself. You're not taught to be strong. You're not taught to be proud of yourself. And that's something that's really important for me. And it's something I'm going to do down the line. But you know. I want you to have standards that are high. I want everybody who's on this channel. I know Keys is married. Most of the guys here are single men. I want everybody here to shoot for the stars. And worst case scenario, you land on the moon. But if you're just, you know, like if you walk into a bar and you just talk to the ugliest girl in the bar, because you're scared, that's why I have a problem. And I got a buddy of mine, real good guy. I don't want to mention him. He hasn't tuned in for a while. I'm not a sports guy, but he tuned in. He supported me. Real good guy. And so anyway, he hooked up with Big Bertha, and she had the biggest crush. And he's like, "Oh, you know, we're just friends." I'm like, "Dude, I know you hooked up with her." No. And then finally after a long time, he's like, "Yeah, you know, we got drunk, we hooked up." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. That's why she follows you around like a puppy." And he's embarrassed about it, and he doesn't like himself. And it kills his self-esteem when in reality he's a business owner. He's like really cool guy. And instead of going after Big Bertha, he should be going after hotties. But when he gets around a hottie, he goes into a shell. He feels like he's undeserving. And anyway. Keys is on fire. Dan tries for 10s and settles for the Big Berthas. I can appreciate that Dan laughs at everything. I'm married and I still have. Here's the thing. It's not a standard with your. I mean, listen. If your wife got to a point where she's berating you and insulting you and putting you down and not supportive of your mission, then hey, let me help. But I want you to have relationships with other guys that are positive. And that's a big thing. I mean, I'm kind of using looks because you can use a number scale and you can quantify that in something that's easy to deal with. It's easy to relate to. Everybody's gone to the bar and, my sister hung out with this really gigantic girl, and she told me, well, I hang out with her because if we go to the mall, this is in the 90s, by the way. So we go to a mall, who are guys going to look at, me or her? And I was like, that just makes sense. But if you're the guy and you have to talk to the fat girl because you're scared to talk to the pretty girl, that's something I want to change. And, too many men are beaten down today. Men are really beaten down. Like I said, turn on any TV show and you'll see a guy that's weak, a guy that's beta, a guy that's made fun of, a guy that's put down almost every television show across the board. And that's something that I think society has done, is kind of weaken men. One thing that One Pride said is that, like, the red pill community and stuff like that, it's more about trashing women now. And that's not what I want to do either. We shouldn't be trashing women. We should just be better versions of ourselves. So I refuse to settle for 2s and 3s. My weight said I should have. No. I'm hesitant. I don't want to talk about your wife, but I've seen pictures of her. She's attractive. She's attractive. So when I was young, my problem was I'd be cool flirting, cracking jokes, and later on my insecurity would creep in. So what I did when I was younger was I just used to drink an insane amount of alcohol, but I couldn't talk to a girl sober. When I would talk drunk. And then also didn't know a lot of things, like the girl who looked like Marissa Tomei. I would go to a bar with her and women would flock to me. But when I went by myself or I went with a buddy, I couldn't figure out why. Well, now that I'm older, I understand why. And I understand the logic behind it. But I also let that girl really destroy my ego and, like, hey, you're nothing without me. See what you can do with me, but you have to do X, Y, and Z for me. And it really bothered me, and I didn't learn a lot of things till later in life. And nowadays we're to a point where um now we're to a point in life where like society is just destroying masculinity, and it's something like I want to build back. I can tell you're insecure with the women you pick. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hardly drink. No, I don't drink at all anymore. I don't drink at all anymore. And there's so much I really want to do. And I kind of went off the track and started talking about that instead of football. But it's something that's been on my mind lately, and something I want to do to kind of contribute to society. And it's something I want to do, for not only friends, but, the people in this community, just men in general. So okay, good. I'm glad you're okay with me saying that. So she's attractive, or she refuses. I'm sorry. She's attractive. She refuses to spend money on herself. He says, I think it's on. And she takes care of the kids, so I can go on your show and others. None of us are valid or problems. But yeah, I love the message. I couldn't date today. So toxic out there. My single friends are so broke. You're right. And that's kind of why I want, that's kind of why I kind of want to do something about that, because there's a group of single men out there that are just broken. So, and I do believe men beat themselves down taking a dub. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Because it sounds insulting if I read that right, and it shouldn't be, because this is positive, because Keys gets to work on his channel. He comes on my channel and supports me. He's building his brand, so I think it's a win. But this sounded negative. Can you? I'll let you speak your mind. I don't want us to throw insults. It sounded kind of insulting, though. If you don't mind, can you elaborate on that? Because I'm a little confused. Alcoholism runs in my family. I got a good friend of mine. His family, I think his stepfather was an alcoholic, so he doesn't drink at all. And I used to kind of make fun of him when I was younger. Now I respect him for it. So, I mean, yeah. But this is something out there that there's so many guys that are just destroyed by relationship. And a lot of it is knowledge. Like, I never understood why, when I hung out with this one girl. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It's not taking the dummy. Okay. So this is a win. I'm sorry. I misunderstood that. I thought. So here's the deal. I'm back up. None of us are without our problems, but yeah, I love the message. I couldn't date today. It's so toxic out there. Okay, good. Okay, all right. I thought you're insulting Keys, and I was like, can we back up? Can you? Okay, my mistake. But yeah, I want to do something. I want to do something. Because when I was younger, I couldn't understand why this beautiful girl, when she hung out with me, beautiful girls would pay attention to me. And then when she was gone, I didn't understand it. But then once I figured it out that, like, hey, beautiful girls will pay attention to me while I'm here, I got to do stuff for her. I had always had to buy her drinks. I had to chauffeur her around. Like, if she was with other guys, I just, I didn't, there's so many things I did wrong. And it bothered me, and it destroyed relationships in the future. And destroyed my self-confidence. It really did for a long time. And then I started building myself up. And my last girlfriend was a solid 7. I was 44. So she was literally half my age. She was 22. Now, I'm not saying you have to date somebody who's 22, but I had a pretty young girlfriend. And when things didn't work out, she didn't treat me the way I deserved to be treated, I left. I didn't stick around because I was afraid that I couldn't do better. I'm only a few weeks older than Leonardo DiCaprio, so I feel like I can always date 20-somethings. Man, I used to think the biggest thing is that everyone needs to learn to love themselves and enjoy being with themselves. They don't measure themselves by the lack of relationship, what's out there. Yeah, you get so much. Yeah, so like, if you're upset over a girl and you want to make her jealous, just date someone hotter. And I mean, like I said, I'm not joking. Look, watch my cousin Vinny. She looked like that. She was incredible. And by the way, one Friday, if you're interested, one of these days, I'll send you a picture of what she looks like now, and you'll laugh. You'll laugh. She did not age well. Alcohol and cigarettes did not do her justice. And yeah, there's a lot of things that are wrong with men nowadays. A lot of things are wrong, and that's kind of like my thing I want to help with. And I hopefully will have some good tips and hopefully have some good advice in the future. And that's something I'm really looking forward to doing. One Pride 40 already told me he'd be my wingman for the channel. He's like, Dan, let's start now. It's like, I want to build up my youth. I want to talk football, but I'm going to get to this. And it's something that's really important. And it's something I'm going to do quite a bit of later on down the line. And that's also awesome that you're on board with that, Keys. I'm hopeful that you'll join in on that channel. And I'm going to wrap up here. And Keys, I really hope that you can join me tomorrow. I got the Gooch on board. I'm really hope if you can reach out to Big Chief Sean, I'm going to try to reach out to Big Chief Sean because I would love to him come on. I want to talk more training camp. I want to hear more stories. I'm excited that Laporta's playing well. I'm excited Gibbs is making an impact. It's the Derek Prince. I started watching some Tulsa highlights of him. And I watched Tulsa last year a couple times. I don't remember him at all. So I started watching some highlights, and it's not ringing a bell at all. I'm kind of like, and apparently he was at the combine. I don't remember him from the combine. But there is a running back, undrafted rookie free agent from Tulsa who's generating some buzz in Chiefs Kingdom. And I cannot wait for preseason because I want to see this kid play. And for the life of me, I can't remember him from Tulsa. So thank you, by the way, for putting the corn icon. That is fantastic. And yeah, that's something that's extremely dangerous and something that God, there's so much I could talk about that right now because it's something that's really like because it's so easily accessible now. It really destroys, man. Matter of fact, I was driving today, and in purple, I think it's shoe polish. You know, you put your right on windshield. A girl had her OnlyFans account on the back of her windshield. It was OnlyFans, and it was like honey buns something. Yeah, so. Generic Prince RAS scores are very comparable to Jamal Charles. I know totally not fair to you. Well, you know what? How about them Chiefs? He had a little short that I was watching earlier today, and his RAS scores and athleticism almost mirrors Isaiah Pacheco. And bottom line, if you can pay a guy like Prince a fraction of what you can pay somebody like CEH, then you're going to take Prince because you have decisions like this that you have to make. And Prince is a guy that Jerick McKinnon tweeted out about him. I heard some other things from normally if I hear something about a player from some of the social media I'm hearing, I don't pay attention to it. But when McKinnon was like, who's this Prince guy, man? He's making some plays. And it's kind of like, okay. And then I keep hearing Prince over and over and over again. And I'm like, okay, I watched Tulsa a couple times this year. He didn't stand out enough. So Dan's OnlyFans is listed in truck stop restrooms. And on that note, I'm going to wrap things up. My top 10 tight ends of all time list. Hopefully, I'll start making the video next week. And when I come on next Friday, I hopefully will be able to announce the release of it. I'm really excited about it. I really want to hear from what you guys think. Funk put in a comment, Travis who, which I thought was genius. I don't know if he got that from Jamar Chase or not, but it was just awesome. If you're still around and you have not done this yet, please give me the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, there's a Cowboys fan who I didn't recognize. Hopefully hit that subscribe button. And you do share this channel. So I really want to get that out there. I heard there's a girl who started OnlyFans at 18, made over $1 million in one night, which is wild. I heard that about um the girl in Dr. Phil, the Cash Me Outside girl. I heard that when she turned 18, she went on OnlyFans and made $18 million. That's what I heard. So then you still I on my platinum members, you get feet pics. So yes. This is a true story. I knew a buddy of mine, huge gamer, right? And he told me he plays with this girl. I was like, oh yeah, you got some pictures? And he goes, yeah, but I can't show you any of them. He goes, kind of risque. And I was like, all right. You sure it's not a dude? Oh, no, it's not. And then a couple of weeks later, he's like, yeah, well, I've given her money a couple times. I'm like, and it's funny because the dude's like the smartest dude I know. But yeah, when he told me he's given money to a complete stranger a couple times, I'm like, oh my God. I saw that Hugh Hefner's son started OnlyFans just to have money for poker. Oh God, that is awesome. His only platinum member is Rex Ryan. Oh God, this is awesome. All right, even though this has been awesome, I'm going to end it here on that note. Sweet. All right, so I guess a lot of people are on board. I didn't know that, man. I believe you. I didn't know. It's kind of cool that you guys are on board for a men's self-development channel, and that's something I really I've been kind of working on, but it's probably not going to come out for a while. I really want to do what I can to build this channel up, and because I've already hit over 1,000 subscribers, I'm trying to hit 4,000 watch hours. I'm doing some things this year, and I'm really looking forward to being just talking football. This NFL season is going to be awesome. As a Chiefs fan, right in the middle of the Chiefs dynasty, the greatest time in Chiefs history. It's just awesome. I absolutely love it, and I'm also really excited about starting a self-development channel. It's really good to hear that you guys are on board about that. So gives me some confidence, and I hope that you guys enjoy my top 10 tight ends of all time video. It's going to come out hopefully soon. Probably I'm planning on next Tuesday. Cross my fingers. It may be after the 4th of July, but I'm hoping you guys will enjoy it. I will see everybody back next Friday.